He hadn't slept in 3 nights. The quiet hum of the medical machines in the dim clinic room only made the silence heavier. Navy SEAL Ethan Cole sat on the cold floor beside the steel table where his canine partner, Shadow, lay struggling to breathe. The dog's chest rose and fell with painful slowness, every breath sounding like a quiet plea for help. Ethan's hand rested on Shadow's fur, fingers trembling not from fear, but from the unbearable feeling of helplessness. Shadow had been with him through everything: missions, storms, deployments, near-death moments, and the long lonely nights when the world outside seemed too loud and the world inside his head even louder. But now, in this small clinic in Virginia, even he, the man once trained to save lives under fire, couldn't save the only life that truly mattered to him. The specialists had tried, the meds had been increased, the tests were repeated, and then the statement came that Ethan never thought he'd hear: "We've done everything we can." It echoed in his mind like the ringing after an explosion. Everything we can. But Ethan knew the truth. Everything was never enough when it came to saving someone you loved. He pressed his forehead to Shadow's body, feeling the dog's faint warmth, whispering, "I'm here, buddy. I won't leave, ever." But love alone wasn't medicine, and loyalty couldn't stop a failing heart. While Ethan kept silent vigil, an SUV pulled up outside the facility. Inside it was Dr. Alyssa Hartman, the woman the military had hired to help fix Ethan's mental state after months of behavioral changes, sleepless nights, and increasing distance from his team. She had read his file. Decorated SEAL, exemplary service record, brave to the point of reckless, and emotionally shutting down after multiple traumatic events. His commander had insisted he needed professional psychological support before returning to duty. Alyssa had prepared herself to meet a hardened soldier who resented therapy, who would sit with crossed arms, who would fight every attempt to be understood. What she didn't expect was to walk into a dim clinic and find that the man she was sent to fix was already breaking. She paused at the doorway, watching him, not as a patient, but as a man drowning silently. His posture, his expression, the way he held Shadow, it wasn't the look of a soldier. It was the look of someone who was terrified of losing the last piece of his heart. "Ethan Cole," she said softly. He didn't turn, didn't react. Only when she stepped closer did he lift his eyes, red and swollen, filled with a grief so deep it shook her. "He's dying," Ethan whispered, voice rough. "And there's nothing anyone can do." Alyssa had worked with soldiers who faced loss, guilt, trauma, but this was different. This was love. Raw, unfiltered, desperate love. "Can you tell me what happened?" she asked gently. He didn't tell her the medical details. He told her memories. The mission in Fallujah where Shadow found the hidden tunnel that saved their unit. The night in Afghanistan when Shadow tackled an armed insurgent and saved Ethan's life. The mornings when Shadow nudged Ethan awake from nightmares, grounding him when nothing else could. Every story was filled with devotion, every moment punctuated by the fear that soon these memories were all he would have left. Alyssa placed a hand on Shadow's side, feeling the weak but steady pulse. She knew well that the hardest thing in her job wasn't helping soldiers talk. It was knowing when hope was real and when it was a lie meant to soften the blow of reality. But as she listened to Ethan and examined the dog, something didn't sit right. The previous vets had diagnosed a failing heart, caused by an advanced infection. But she noticed slight irregularities, symptoms that didn't fully match the diagnosis. She had studied animal medicine during her trauma therapy training. It was a rare combination, but her path had been shaped by one thing: her own military K9, who died years ago after a misdiagnosis. She had promised herself she would never let another soldier feel the regret she had lived with. "Ethan," she said slowly, "I don't think this is what they said it is." He looked at her like she had spoken a different language. "What are you talking about?" "3 specialists saw him." "I know," she said. "But sometimes even specialists miss something. Let me check him properly." He hesitated, torn between hope and fear. Hope could be cruel, especially when you were afraid it might be false. But something in Alyssa's eyes, something fierce and determined, made him nod. For the next hour, she worked with the focus of a surgeon and the urgency of someone fighting time. She checked vitals, cross-referenced symptoms, reviewed the charts, and examined Shadow with meticulous precision. Ethan watched every move, barely breathing. Finally, Alyssa exhaled sharply. Ethan, I think Shadow can be saved. The world stopped. His heart slammed against his ribs. Don't say that unless you're certain. I'm not guessing, she insisted. This isn't a failing heart. It's a rare toxin exposure that mimics cardiac failure. There's an antidote, but it's difficult to get, and the window is closing fast. What toxin? Ethan demanded. It's called MLV9A. Found in certain industrial materials used in older training facilities. It's rare, but not unheard of. If he was exposed recently. He was, Ethan whispered. 2 weeks ago during a rebuilding project at the old training compound. Alyssa's pulse quickened. Then this is treatable, but we need the antidote. And it's only available in one research facility. 2 hours away. Ethan grabbed his keys immediately. Let's go. Alyssa shook her head. You can't leave him. His condition could crash. He needs someone medically trained here. Then you go, he said firmly. Alyssa blinked. She had expected resistance, not trust. Ethan, this isn't part of my job. I was assigned to evaluate you, not. Please, he said, voice cracking. Help him. Help me. Those words broke through every professional boundary she had ever held. She grabbed her coat, sprinted to her SUV, and didn't look back. The drive was a blur, speeding through highways, cutting through traffic, ignoring the sting of fear every time she thought she might be too late. She begged the research facility for the antidote. They refused. Protocol, risk, authorization issues. She didn't accept it. She pushed, argued, fought through the bureaucracy until finally, they handed her the vial that could save Shadow's life. She didn't stop for a single red light on the way back. When she burst into the clinic, Ethan stood over Shadow, panic in his eyes as the dog's breathing grew shallow. He's fading, Ethan choked. Not today, Alyssa said. She prepared the injection with shaking hands. Ethan held Shadow gently, whispering, stay with me, boy. Stay with me. Alyssa injected the antidote, praying silently. Minutes passed. Long, tortuous minutes in which time felt frozen. Then, Shadow's breathing eased. His chest rose with slightly more strength. His pulse steadied. A soft, weak whine escaped his throat, and his tail fluttered just once. Ethan broke. Not with noise, not with violence, but with silent, overwhelming relief. He buried his face in Shadow's fur as tears fell freely, the tears he had held back through war, pain, loss, and every moment that had carved scars deeper than any bullet wound. Alyssa watched, her own eyes burning. She hadn't just saved a dog. She had saved the only part of Ethan that still believed in love. When Shadow finally opened his eyes fully, dark, warm, alive, Ethan wrapped his arms around Alyssa without thinking. Thank you, he whispered. You saved him. You saved me. She hugged him back, stunned by the quiet intensity of his gratitude. He wasn't ready to give up, she said. And neither were you. Over the next days, Alyssa stayed by Ethan's side, not because she was assigned, but because she couldn't bear to leave. They watched Shadow regain strength, eating again, lifting his head, wagging his tail. Each improvement felt like a small miracle. The man she had been hired to fix no longer felt like a case. He felt like someone whose wounds she understood. Someone who didn't need to be fixed, just needed someone who cared enough to stand beside him. One evening, as Shadow slept peacefully between them, Ethan looked at Alyssa with a softness she hadn't seen before. Why did you do it? He asked. Why risk so much for a dog you just met? Alyssa took a slow breath. Years ago, I lost my own canine partner because of a mistake in diagnosis. I couldn't save him, and I swore that if I ever had the chance to stop another soldier from feeling that pain, I'd take it. No matter what it cost. Ethan reached for her hand, his touch gentle. You didn't just save Shadow. You gave me something I thought I lost a long time ago. What? She asked. Hope. Shadow's tail thumped in his sleep, as if he knew they were talking about him. Ethan smiled, an expression Alyssa realized she had never seen on him before, genuine, unguarded, filled with warmth. The kind of smile that came from healing, not hiding. She squeezed his hand. You're not broken, Ethan. You never were. You just needed someone to remind you that your heart still works. And you did, he said softly. You risked everything, for us. For the first time in years, He felt the heavy walls around him begin to fall. Not because someone tried to break them down, but because someone cared enough to stand outside them until he felt safe opening the door. Over time, Ethan's nightmares eased. His temper softened. His laughter returned. Quiet at first, then stronger. Alyssa wasn't just a therapist. She became his friend, his confidant, the person who understood him in ways words couldn't explain. Shadow recovered fully within weeks, running, barking, nudging Ethan awake from nightmares the same way he always had. But something was different now. Ethan wasn't waking up alone. And months later, when he returned to active duty, he did so not as a broken man struggling to stand, but as a whole man who had been reminded that even the strongest warriors need someone to fight for them too. Sometimes healing comes from therapy. Sometimes from time. And sometimes from the unexpected kindness of a woman who sees the wounds behind the silence, and risks everything to save the life that holds a soldier together. In saving Shadow, Alyssa had given Ethan more than a second chance. She had given him a reason to believe again. And in doing so, she discovered that sometimes the greatest acts of healing are born not from duty, but from love. And in that quiet clinic, on the night Shadow opened his eyes again, something else had begun to breathe again too. Hope. Warm, stubborn, and beautifully alive.